Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. We unpack the stories behind the headlines that, well, really shape our world.
And today, we're diving into a moment that feels critical for Africa's digital future. Almost like something from a geopolitical thriller.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, imagine this with us. Nairobi, 2025. You've got these bright neon lights from a big tech conference reflecting everywhere.
Packed venue.
Packed. And an African Union official steps onto the stage. Now look at the front row. Representatives from Huawei, Microsoft, AWS, Orange, Thales. They're all there, poised.
Each one ready to, well, fundamentally shape Africa's digital direction.
And the panel title really says it all. The Empire Codes Back. Who will supply Africa's AI future?
It's definitely more than just a panel, isn't it? What we're really talking about here is this kind of silent war.
A silent war, like that.
Yeah, not with weapons, but, across boardrooms, in massive data centers, through hidden fiber optic cables. It's a really fierce contest for Africa's AI-driven future.
A continent now seen as one of the fastest-growing digital economies anywhere.
Absolutely. And you have these global titans, China, the U.S., Europe, all battling to build Africa's essential cloud infrastructure, the AI tools, the smart cities that will define life there for decades.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack this intense three-way struggle. Power, ambition, technology, it's all in there.
We'll look at the global business strategies, introduce you to some of the, frankly, superstar leaders driving these huge companies.
And map out the complex geopolitics creating these, well, frankly, huge opportunities for innovative businesses and CEOs who get their strategy right.
You should walk away with some surprising facts, maybe some inspiring stories, and definitely some valuable lessons for anyone trying to navigate today's global business world.
Great. And as always, a quick disclaimer. Our content is based on news reports, public statements, financial records, things like that. We can't know every single detail, of course.
No, but our goal is to give you the most informed perspective we can on this unfolding global drama.
Okay, so let's get into it. How did this global tech Cold War actually land in Africa? Let's rewind a bit, maybe to April 2019.
Yeah, that's a good starting point. And picture the contrast. It's quite stark. You have a private jet landing in Kinshasa, the capital of the DRC.
Okay.
A senior Huawei executive gets off. He's there to finalize a pretty big deal for a safe city surveillance system.
Right. Meanwhile,
literally at the same time, halfway across the world in Washington, D.C., U.S. officials are actually drafting the executive order to blacklist Huawei.
wow, the battle lines being drawn in real time almost.
Pretty much, yeah. And what's fascinating isn't just how quickly things escalated, but the boldness of that U.S. move.
That whole year, 2019, the Trump administration hit Huawei with those sweeping bans.
Cut off access to vital U.S. tech, yeah. And then they started leaning hard on allies, telling them to exclude Huawei from their 5G networks.
Citing national security concerns, calling Huawei a potential Trojan horse for Beijing.
Exactly. And countries like Australia, the UK, Japan, they mostly went along with it. It really felt like it could be a knockout blow for Huawei.
A knockout blow, yeah. But it wasn't, was it? What was Huawei's countermove? How did they survive that kind of pressure from the world's biggest economy?
Well, they definitely weren't crippled. And this is where Ren Zhengfei, Huawei's founder, really showed his strategic thinking, maybe just sheer defiance.
Okay.
See, Beijing had been supporting Huawei for years, decades even. We're talking potentially up to $75 billion in subsidies and financing.
$75 billion.
Yeah, which let them undercut Western competitors on price, sometimes massively, like 70% cheaper.
Wow.
So when the U.S. door slammed shut, Ren Zhengfei didn't just pivot, he doubled down. He looked at emerging markets, Africa, Asia, Latin America, places Washington had maybe overlooked.
And he wasn't just selling phones or network gear, right?
Right.
It was a bigger strategy.
Oh, much bigger. Huawei launched this full-on charm offensive, not just selling products, but building entire digital ecosystems. Laying undersea fiber optic cables, connecting continents, partnering on building data centers, rolling out smart city technology. It was comprehensive.
And this tied into China's broader vision.
Absolutely. President Xi himself called it the Digital Silk Road. It was basically extending the huge Belt and Road Initiative into cyberspace.
So by 2025, you're talking serious investment.
Huge. Over 10,000 Chinese firms, maybe over $300 billion invested across Africa. And increasingly, it wasn't just roads and ports, but high-tech stuff. AI research centers, advanced surveillance systems.
That is some serious strategic resilience from Huawei. But Washington must have been watching this. What was their response? Did the strategy move beyond just banning Huawei?
It had to. They watched this with increasing alarm, and they realized that old saying, you can't beat something with nothing.
Right.
So under President Biden, the U.S. strategy shifted. It wasn't just defense anymore. It was about offering actual alternatives.
Like the B3W initiative.
Yeah, initially, Build Back Better World, which became the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, PGII, announced by Biden and G7 partners in 2021, specifically to counter China's Belt and Road.
And then more funding announcements.
Yep, late 2022, the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit pledged $55 billion for Africa. And you started seeing concrete actions like the DFC, that's the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, funding a consortium in Ethiopia, specifically to use non-Chinese telecom equipment. That signaled a much more assertive competitive stance from the U.S.
Okay, so China's making big moves. The U.S. is countering with its own package. What about Europe? Were they just sitting on the sidelines?
Not a chance. Europe was determined not to be squeezed out. They launched their own massive program, the Global Gateway.
Global Gateway, right. How much were they pledging?
A huge number, $150 billion for African infrastructure by 2030. And Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, was very direct about it. She called it a geopolitical project.
So a direct response to China.
Explicitly. But Europe's pitch was a bit different. They emphasized things like digital sovereignty, the idea that nations should control their own data and digital infrastructure.
And ethical AI.
Exactly. Promoting partnerships among equals, focusing on data protection, human rights in tech, trying to offer a values-based alternative.
And who are the main European companies leading this charge on the ground?
You mainly saw players like Orange and Thales stepping up. Orange is a huge mobile operator, already present in over 18 African countries, massive consumer base, deep historical ties, especially in Francophone Africa.
Okay, so the network and consumer side.
Right. And then Thales brings the high-tech security and digital solutions, think biometric ID systems, cybersecurity, that sort of thing. They became Europe's spearheads, pushing this message of trusted partnerships and ethical tech.
Okay, we've mapped the battlefield, the big strategies, but let's get down to the companies and the people driving this. The superstar CEOs and their tech empires, starting back with Huawei.
Right, Huawei. As we said, really the champion of China's global tech ambitions. They went from making basic phone switches in the 80s to being a global 5G leader, supplying networks everywhere, including most of Africa, by 2020.
And Ren Zhengfei, the founder, his personality seems key.
Absolutely. Especially after the whole saga with his daughter, Meng Wanzhou, being detained. That sort of cemented his image as this indomitable survivor. It really fueled Huawei's push into Africa.
Investing in local training, cyber hubs.
Yeah, branding themselves as Africa's most reliable friend. That really sums it up. They try to strangle us. We innovate our way out. That became their mantra.
Powerful. Okay, shift to the American side. Microsoft and AWS, the twin pillars, you called them. What's their story here?
Well, for the U.S., it's this powerful combination. Microsoft, under Satya Nadella, just completely reinvented itself. From, Windows and Office to being an AI and cloud-first giant with Azure.
A huge transformation.
Massive.
Yeah.
And then AWS, led by Andy Jassy. They basically invented the modern cloud services industry. And both of them, starting in the late 2010s, really saw Africa's potential. Millions of people coming online, this huge, largely untapped market for business services.
And Nadella's approach at Microsoft. You mentioned strategic empathy.
Yeah, I think that's key. It wasn't just about selling tech. Nadella framed Microsoft's presence as empowerment. They invested in local initiatives like Microsoft for Africa, the Africa Research Institute.
So positioning themselves differently.
Exactly. Trying to appear less like a geopolitical rival to China and more like a neutral partner, helping Africa build its own capacity.
Okay.
That's a really smart play in complex markets, something aspiring strategists should definitely study.
Okay. And Europe's champions, Orange and Thales. What was their unique angle beyond just being European?
Well, Orange, now led by Christel Heidman, brings that huge customer base through mobile networks and, crucially, mobile money platforms like Orange Money. That connects tens of millions.
So deep roots in the consumer market.
Deep roots. And Thales provides the sophisticated tech, cybersecurity, AI-enhanced surveillance, digital ID. Together, they represented Europe's bid to stay relevant, leveraging those historical ties, especially France's.
And pushing the trusted partner and ethical tech message.
Right. And a key move here was driven by Orange's chief AI officer, Steve Jarrett. They launched this groundbreaking partnership with OpenAI.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about this, focusing on African languages.
Exactly. Incorporating 18 African languages into AI models.
Right.
That's not just a technical feat. It's a powerful strategic signal about inclusion and respecting local context. That kind of thing really resonates.
Okay, we've met the contenders. Let's zoom back in on Africa itself. How is this rivalry actually playing out on the ground? Where do you see it?
Well, take Nairobi, Kenya. People call it Silicon Savannah for a reason. Let's say it's 2021. You walk into one of these slick new tech hubs downtown. Immediately, the competition is tangible. Big screens playing Microsoft promo videos, empowering Africa one cloud at a time. Then you check social media, and there are Huawei ads. Building a smart Africa together.
So Kenya is like a microcosm of the bigger battle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A real hot spot where these different visions and offers are colliding every day.
And you mentioned Africa's digital boom. It really feels like a modern scramble, but for cloud capacity and AI expertise this time.
That's a good way to put it. Internet use soaring, smartphones everywhere, data traffic exploding. It's one of the fastest growing digital economies, period.
And the race for cloud infrastructure really heated up around 2019.
Yeah, that was a key moment. Microsoft opened Africa's first hyperscale Azure cloud regions in South Africa. And hyperscale is important. These aren't just regular data centers.
Right, they're built for massive, almost infinite scale.
Exactly. Crucial for a continent digitizing so rapidly. AWS wasn't far behind, launching their own big region in Cape Town in 2020. Then Google Cloud followed in Johannesburg a bit later.
So the American giants staked their claim early.
They did. But remember, European telcos like Orange and Vodafone had been there for decades with mobile networks. They already had deep connections and, frankly, huge amounts of user data from services like Orange Money.
Data that could fuel AI services later.
Precisely. Then, in May 2024, Huawei made its own big cloud play, launching a dedicated Huawei cloud region in Egypt. Huge investment, around $430 million.
So now African businesses really have choices. American cloud, Chinese cloud, maybe European partnership.
Exactly. Multiple options, which gives them leverage.
And Egypt seems like a key battleground where you can see this playing out clearly. What happened there?
Yeah, Egypt became a real focal point. In 2021, you had Thales partnering with the Egyptian government on AI development, pushing that French-European ethical tech narrative data protection, human rights first.
Okay.
But at the same time, Huawei was investing heavily in cloud services in Egypt in 2022 and partnering on the massive Noor Smart City project. Think AI managing traffic flows, security systems.
And the U.S. firms were in the mix too.
Of course, courting Egyptian companies and government bodies. So what you end up with in Egypt is this patchwork digital landscape. Western tech, Chinese tech, local innovations, all interwoven. And that pattern is repeating across Africa.
It's so important to stress, though, that African nations aren't just passively receiving this stuff. They're playing an active role.
Absolutely critical point. They are actively leveraging this rivalry. They're balancing investments, playing one side off against the other to get better deals.
And cost and speed often win out, right?
Often, yes. Huawei's gear being 30–40% cheaper, plus those state-backed financing deals with low interest rates. That's a very compelling package, especially when budgets are tight and needs are urgent.
But there are growing concerns, too, about becoming too dependent, about digital colonialism?
Definitely. You hear that term a lot from African tech leaders and civil society groups. Concerns about data sovereignty, who controls the data, and a real push for homegrown alternatives, building local capacity.
I remember that quote from the Ghanaian tech entrepreneur, Ama, something like, "We see Microsoft training here, Huawei installing fiber there. We'll pick what solves our problems now."
Yeah, that captures the pragmatism perfectly. We'll use whatever works and hope we can build our own tech capacity before it's too late. That sentiment is really driving a lot of the innovation you see happening locally. Startups using these foreign platforms, yes, but building uniquely African solutions on top.
Which brings us to smart cities. You called them a flashpoint, almost a digital Trojan horse.
Well, it's where the promises and perils are really stark. China, often through Huawei, has been incredibly successful in promoting smart city and safe city systems. At least 9 African countries had major projects by 2024.
Like the big surveillance system in Nairobi?
That's a prime example. Or reports about Uganda using Chinese facial recognition tech, allegedly to track opposition figures. The appeal is obvious. Ready-made security tech, often bundled with easy financing and quick deployment.
But the risks, potential for misuse, surveillance overreach.
Exactly. And the infamous allegation, never definitively proven but widely reported, about the African Union headquarters itself being bugged back in 2017, supposedly by Chinese-installed tech. Plus, the broader concerns about debt-trap diplomacy taking on loans for these projects that become unsustainable.
So the US and EU argue for privacy, rule of law, ethical tech.
They do. But when a government feels it needs enhanced security now, and China offers a cheaper, faster solution, it's a tough calculation. It forces this trade-off between immediate needs and longer-term values.
Okay, let's pull the lens back again. This isn't just happening in Africa, it's echoing globally. How did shifts in other parts of the world influence this?
Hugely. Look at India. After those border clashes with China in mid-2020, things changed fast. India banned dozens of Chinese apps like TikTok and effectively blocked Huawei from its 5G rollout.
Aligning more with the US and Western tech.
Right. And then you saw U.S. tech giants like Google and Facebook pour billions into India's telecom sector, especially Reliance Jio. And crucially, having Indian-American CEOs like Sundar Pichai at Google and Satya Nadella at Microsoft was seen as a major advantage.
How so?
They were hailed in India as global tech titans with Indian roots. That cultural connection helped build trust and smooth the way for these massive investments. It shows how CEO identity can actually play a role in these geopolitical tech shifts.
Interesting. And Europe, it was both a player and an arena in this tech Cold War, right?
Absolutely. Caught between U.S. pressure and its own ambitions. Under intense lobbying from Washington, many European countries, Germany, France, the UK, put restrictions on Huawei or began phasing them out of 5G networks.
Which helped European companies like Nokia and Ericsson.
Definitely. It was a clear geopolitical win for them. But Europe also pushed back against becoming too reliant on U.S. tech. They introduced landmark regulations like GDPR for data privacy and the really ambitious AI Act.
Asserting digital sovereignty.
Exactly. Which is a key lesson for African nations, too, showing you can set your own rules, even with powerful allies. And ironically, these strict EU rules actually forced U.S. companies like Microsoft to invest more in Europe, offering things like cloud for sovereignty to meet local data residency and control requirements.
And Latin America, did they pick a side?
It was much more nuanced. Brazil, for instance, looked like it might ban Huawei, but then reversed course. Some reports linked this to receiving millions of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines when they were desperately needed.
A potential quid pro quo. Vaccines for 5G access.
That was the speculation. Brazil allowed Huawei into its 5G network and even partnered on a 5G city pilot. And across Latin America, despite U.S. warnings about security risks, many countries chose Chinese tech simply because it was cheaper. African leaders definitely watched how Latin America navigated these choices.
Beyond governments, the personalities of these CEOs seem incredibly important. We mentioned Ren Zhengfei's defiance at Huawei, Nadella's strategic empathy at Microsoft.
Yeah, and you have Crystal Heidman and Steve Jarrett at Orange really driving that focus on inclusive growth in Africa. That project with OpenAI on African languages, promising to open source the models for governments. That's a huge trust-building move. It signals commitment beyond just profits.
A very different approach.
Very different. And then you have the wild card, Elon Musk. Starlink, his satellite internet service, just appeared, beaming connectivity from space.
Adding pressure on everyone else.
Totally. It highlighted the massive need for connectivity, especially in rural Africa, where laying fiber is slow and expensive. Starlink basically forced all the traditional players, telcos, governments, infrastructure providers, to up their game and accelerate their own rollouts.
And all this is happening as AI just explodes into the mainstream, right? Post-ChatGPT.
Exactly. Suddenly, every government, every company wants an AI strategy. The U.S. is leading on the cutting-edge innovation, China is racing to catch up, Europe's focusing on getting the rules right.
And Africa is seen as this key future market for AI. Potential for huge economic impact, maybe $100 billion added to the economy.
Yeah, and you see the big players launching AI for good initiatives. Google's AI labs in Ghana and Kenya doing things like flood prediction, Microsoft partnering on healthcare diagnostics.
Sounds positive, but is there skepticism?
Oh, yes. Some African tech leaders, like Asma Dirja, raised concerns. Is Africa just becoming a giant testing ground for foreign AI models? Are we just exporting valuable data back to Silicon Valley and Shenzhen?
Instead of building local capacity.
Right. It's that call for genuine digital self-sufficiency, for building indigenous AI infrastructure, not just being consumers or data sources for foreign tech.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. Let's imagine that dramatic showdown you mentioned, fictionalized but based on reality, at the African Union HQ in Addis Ababa, mid-2025.
Right. The AU has called this special closed-door meeting the big decision. choosing a partner for a huge new initiative, Africa's AI Cloud. Think of it as a continental platform for public services, data sharing, digital governance.
High stakes. 3 consortiums making their final pitches.
Picture the scene. First up, Mr. Zhang, a senior VP from Huawei. He's addressing the AU commissioner directly.
What's his pitch?
He pledges fully financed data centers, built fast, extensive training for African engineers. Crucially, he says, our technology comes with no political strings attached. He highlights their incredibly attractive financing, maybe 1% interest loans over 20 years.
Something Western companies can't easily match.
Exactly. His closing line, Africa's digital transformation has waited too long. We stand ready to accelerate it now. It's all about speed, affordability, and getting it done. Very compelling.
Okay, then the U.S. pitch.
Next, Ms. Williams steps up. She's representing a joint bid from AWS and Microsoft. Her emphasis is totally different: partnership, not just provision.
How so?
She talks about building on the cloud infrastructure they already have in Africa. Massive capacity building, training thousands of engineers via AWS Academy, Microsoft Africa University, a $500 million grant fund for African tech startups.
And addressing the sovereignty concerns.
Directly. She stresses world-class security, guarantees of data sovereignty, saying explicitly, no foreign government access, period. Her message is empowerment. Our aim is to make you self-sufficient in tech in the long run. Longer-term vision.
And finally, Europe's offer.
Monsieur Leclerc from Thales, maybe alongside Mariam Diouf, Orange's respected Africa director. They present the European bid, their frame, a partnership of equals.
With joint governance.
Yeah, proposing joint EU-AU governance for a trusted cloud built on African values and human rights. Mariam Diouf speaks passionately about Orange's work on local language AI, those 18 languages, and commits to open sourcing the models.
Reinforcing the inclusion message.
And trust. Her closing might be something like, Africa should not have to trade security for speed or values for technology. With us, you get both innovation and peace of mind. It appeals to a different set of priorities: governance, ethics, long-term trust.
Wow, so the AU Commission has this incredibly tough decision. Each pitch hits different needs: cost, control, capacity building, underlying values.
It perfectly captures the dilemma, but also Africa's newfound leverage. The continent isn't just choosing a vendor, it's choosing a path for its digital future. And it can demand more from everyone.
Like that African advisor quote you imagined. When elephants fight, the grass suffers, but when they cooperate, perhaps the grass can thrive. We intend to make the elephants cooperate on our terms.
Exactly, a powerful assertion of agency, making the global powers work for Africa, not the other way around.
So as we look towards the near future, maybe late 2025, what's the reality on the ground? Is there a clear winner?
No, not really a single winner. What seems to be emerging is this hybrid future. You see cloud data centers rising, smart city projects moving forward, but they often involve a mix, maybe American AI software running alongside Chinese cameras connected by European sensors or networks.
So the rivalry isn't necessarily zero-sum. It's actually forcing everyone to offer more.
Precisely. More investment, more training, more local partnerships, more innovation. The competition, while fierce, is ultimately benefiting Africa by driving up the value of the offers.
And critically, African innovators are seizing this moment.
Absolutely. This is the really exciting part. African tech entrepreneurs, developers, engineers. They're using these new infrastructures, regardless of who built them, to create solutions for local problems. They're proving Africa isn't just a market to be won, it's the protagonist writing its own digital story.
The seeds are being planted for Africa's own tech giants.
Definitely. They're building indigenous capacity on top of this diverse global foundation.
So maybe the provocative thought to leave people with is this: the battle for Africa's AI future. It's really a battle for what globalization looks like in the 21st century.
Will it be dominated by a few competing empires? Or can it become a competition that genuinely benefits everyone, especially those historically left behind?
The empire's code, as the title said.
But Africa is learning to decode and maybe even recode, taking control, shaping the technology to fit its own needs and narrative. The game is definitely on. But maybe, just maybe, so is the kind of collaboration Africa is insisting on.
A fascinating place to leave it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this gave you some fresh insights into the powerful forces shaping our world. Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep learning.
You've been listening to Empire and Legacy, African Business Chronicles. Our hosts are Zuri Mwangi and Kwame Adeyemi. Main episodes are released each Monday. Our hosts delve deeper into the CEOs at the helm on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, we explore the global perspectives, the standout businesses and CEOs, emerging trends, and geopolitical developments, presenting both risk and opportunity. We're back each week, sharing more stories about the exciting business rivalries shaping the future of business across Africa. Empire and Legacy is essential listening for business professionals and leaders. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when new episodes are released. Until next time,